Here's why Alicent protected Aegon despite knowing the truth about his claim. In the political labyrinth of Westeros, every choice carries consequences that ripple through families, kingdoms, and even centuries of history. And in HBO's House of the Dragon, perhaps no decision better illustrates this than Queen Alicent Hightower's unwavering choice to protect and elevate her son, Aegon II Targaryen, to the Iron Throne, even though she knew deep down that his claim to rule was weaker than Rhaenyra's. But why would Alicent, a woman who so often spoke of duty, honor, and the will of the late King Viserys, choose to shield Aegon's rule when she understood that it was built on shaky ground? Why did she protect her son, despite the truth of his unworthiness being as plain to her as the seven-pointed star she so often clutched in prayer? In this deep dive, we'll explore the reasons behind Alicent's decision, her love as a mother, her personal history with Rhaenyra, her manipulation by Otto Hightower, her reliance on faith, and her growing desperation to secure the future of her children in a world ruled by fire and blood. By the end, you'll see that Alicent's choice was not simply about ambition or denial. It was about survival, loyalty, and the brutal realities of power in Westeros. So let's dive into why Alicent protected Aegon, even when she knew the truth. The weight of motherhood. At its core, Alicent's decision to protect Aegon begins with her role as a mother. From the moment she gave birth to him, Alicent's life became consumed with the survival and prosperity of her children. In the world of House of the Dragon, motherhood is not just about nurturing, it's about safeguarding. A queen's children are always targets. A rival's children are always threats. And Alicent understood this better than anyone. Rhaenyra, the named heir of Viserys, was seen as the rightful successor to the Iron Throne. But with Aegon's birth, a dangerous dynamic was born. Suddenly, the realm faced two possible heirs, the daughter who had been chosen, and the son who represented the traditional, male line of succession. Alicent knew that if Rhaenyra took the throne, Aegon and his siblings would never be safe. The precedent was clear. Claimants to the throne, no matter how young or innocent, often ended up dead when their rival ascended. Alicent's maternal instinct screamed at her that protecting Aegon was not just about making him king, it was about keeping him alive. For Alicent, protecting Aegon meant protecting her bloodline, her family, and everything she had endured to raise them. Chapter 2. The Shadow of Rhaenyra. But Alicent's protection of Aegon was not just about love, it was also about rivalry. From the moment they were young, Alicent and Rhaenyra shared a complicated relationship. They were once friends, bonded by youth and laughter, reading together in the Godswood and confiding in one another. But Viserys' marriage to Alicent shattered that bond. Rhaenyra saw it as a betrayal, her best friend becoming her stepmother. The two women grew apart, and over the years, their rivalry deepened. Alicent watched as Rhaenyra flaunted her freedom, while she, Alicent, was forced into the role of dutiful queen, bearing child after child. The bitterness only grew as the years went on. Rhaenyra's children, clearly fathered by Harwin Strong, were still defended and legitimized by Viserys. Alicent, who had spent her life obeying tradition, faith, and her father's counsel, saw Rhaenyra seemingly escape punishment for breaking every rule. So when the question of succession came, Alicent's decision was not just about who had the better claim, it was about who she trusted less. She believed that Rhaenyra, with her pride and her fire, would never forgive the slights of the past. Protecting Aegon meant standing against Rhaenyra, not only for political reasons but for deeply personal ones. Alicent was not just a queen protecting her son, she was a woman protecting herself from her rival. Otto Hightower's influence. Another key piece in this puzzle is Alicent's father, Otto Hightower. Otto, ever the strategist, saw Aegon's birth as an opportunity. He understood that Westeros would never truly rally behind a female heir, no matter how loudly Viserys declared Rhaenyra his successor. Otto planted seeds in Alicent's mind early, whispering that Aegon was the rightful heir by blood and tradition. Over the years, Otto's words shaped Alicent's worldview. He painted Rhaenyra as dangerous, unfit, and selfish, while elevating Aegon as the solution to the realm's uncertainties. Otto's influence cannot be overstated. He molded Alicent into a queen who saw duty not just as loyalty to her husband, but as loyalty to her father's vision. When Viserys died and the succession crisis erupted, Otto was quick to act. He pressured Alicent, guided her counsel, and turned her maternal fears into political resolve. Protecting Aegon was no longer just her instinct, it became her father's strategy. And Alicent, torn between her love for her father and her confusion about the realm's future, leaned into Otto's vision. Faith and destiny. One of the most overlooked elements of Alicent's character is her faith. Unlike most Targaryens, who often brushed aside the Seven in favor of their own Valyrian traditions, Alicent clung to the faith of the Seven. She wore the seven-pointed star, prayed regularly, and measured her choices against the values instilled in her by her faith. This faith gave Alicent both comfort and justification. She came to believe that perhaps the gods themselves had chosen Aegon to rule. After all, why else would Viserys father a son if not to give the realm a king in waiting? Her faith twisted her perspective. To her, protecting Aegon was not just an act of love or defiance, it was an act of divine duty. She convinced herself that putting her son on the throne was not against Viserys' wishes, but aligned with a higher calling. This religious conviction gave her the strength to make hard choices, even when her heart and reason conflicted. The truth of Viserys' words. Perhaps the most pivotal moment in Alicent's decision-making comes in the final hours of King Viserys' life. Viserys, rambling and feverish, whispered about Aegon the Conqueror's dream, the Song of Ice and Fire. He spoke of Aegon needing to be the one to unite the realm against the darkness. But Alicent misunderstood. She believed he was speaking of their son, Aegon II, not their ancestors' prophecy. This misunderstanding became Alicent's anchor. For years, she had doubted, feared, and hesitated. But now she believed she had Viserys' blessing. Even though, deep down, she knew that Rhaenyra had been named heir countless times, this final moment allowed her to rationalize her choice. She wasn't just protecting Aegon out of fear or love, she was fulfilling Viserys' dying wish. In truth, Alicent twisted the king's final words to fit her own narrative. But in her mind, this was the truth she needed. The political reality. Beyond family, faith, and misunderstanding, Alicent also faced a harsh political reality. The lords of Westeros were restless. Many of them, particularly the great houses like Baratheon, Lannister, and Hightower, were reluctant to accept a female ruler. Alicent knew that even if Rhaenyra sat on the throne, her rule would be contested. The realm would fracture, rebellions would spark, and her children would always be pawns in a dangerous game. By protecting Aegon and placing him on the throne, Alicent thought. She was choosing stability. She believed the realm would rally around him, that tradition would silence dissent, and that bloodshed could be avoided. Of course, she was wrong. But in that moment, her protection of Aegon seemed like the safer choice. Chapter 7. The Cost of Protection. Yet, as history shows, Alicent's protection of Aegon came with devastating consequences. The dance of the dragons was not avoided, it was ignited. Thousands died, families were destroyed, and dragons turned the skies into fire and ash. By shielding Aegon, Alicent set into